Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey everyone, I was hoping to get this message put together sooner, but things like this unfortunately take time to set up. I just want to say that the acts of war against Ukraine break my heart, and I know as a prior service member myself that my thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who's fighting the fight that they really shouldn't have to. That being said, we have been working behind the scenes with all of our podcasts and podcast partners to put a fund together in order to pay for any refugee housing and other needs that go alongside that, like food, water, and any clothing needs. Internally, many podcasts in the Hospitality FM network have voluntarily given up sponsorship money in order to donate to the cause and are working on a unified message in order to spread throughout all of our podcasts. So this is me calling out to all of our property manager friends, industry experts, and anyone knowing of those providing lodging for Ukrainian refugees seeking safety. You can contact me directly at will with one L, W-I-L, at slicktalkmedia.com. We have an internal document that is being updated in real time, so if anyone could share this message within your network, we'd greatly appreciate it. I'm also placing in the show notes a link to our GoFundMe and landing page for Rentals to Rescue. That's rentalstorescue.com, where we're putting funds together in order to, again, provide finances for any of these lodging and relocation needs. So thank you so much for tuning into this quick message. I hope you guys are all well and safe, as I know we have tons of listeners in Ukraine and other countries in Europe. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
I'm not putting my address in, I'm not putting anything else in. I'm going to go on Airbnb because it's easier. So things like a product decision for us would be to just have name, phone number, credit card entry. That increases your conversion rate, and but we would have members who are looking to change that so that they can enter, they can have an address form and all of these pre-payment forms that are just not, they shouldn't be doing it. Instead of having it before payment, do that after payment. Really simple, a simple change, but makes a world of difference in terms of conversion rate. And people don't know about these things, obviously. When people don't build websites, it's not something that most people understand, but at least from us coming from that kind of background and testing landing pages and all that, we have a better understanding of what should be done to increase your conversion rates.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. In hotels and vacation rentals, the top complaints or issues are noise, garbage, and parking. I may not be able to solve all of your parking and garbage problems, but I could definitely help with your noise problems. And that actually might just help your garbage and parking problems too. So NoiseAware is the only 100% privacy-safe noise monitoring solution that property managers and owners can use in order to ensure they avoid parties and other issues happening at their property. You won't get notified when a plate breaks, but if you have a little quiet get-together that kind of gets out of hand, like this, then NoiseAware will give you the peace of mind to ensure that you and your property, and of course, your profits, are protected. So use my code SlickTalk20 to get 20% off of all noise monitoring devices and focus on the other important things that help you run your business. Now, thank you for checking out Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Get back to the episode, and don't forget to check out NoiseAware while you're listening. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. And Vinny, I did see you dancing in the background there.
Good piece.
Yeah, they get the listeners all encouraged, but very excited today. Vincent and I just got back from Miami, meeting in person for the first time. I've known of you and I've known of Uplisting for, I think, since like 2019-ish, and kind of been following the story. I'm in your guys' Facebook group and all this other stuff. But we finally have the opportunity to really sit down and go into your story. So I'm excited to have met you first before the recording. And now thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, Will.
Of course. Well, just for the audience sake, where are you located? Where are you coming from? All that good stuff.
I'm located in Manhattan, in New York, in the East Village, originally from Ireland.
Okay, so you'll hear a great accent. Irish is my hometown that I obviously have never visited before, but
yet.
Yes, exactly. But I'm super excited to dive into your story. So let's jump into for the audience sake again. Go into what Uplisting is. What have you guys created, and then of course your story getting into vacation rentals, and of course now tech.
Yeah, so Uplisting we're a preferred Airbnb software partner, and we're basically a property and channel manager. We work with Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, Google shortly, and direct bookings. We've been around for a few years. Originally set up in the UK. We're totally remote, and so we've got teammates everywhere, and we kind of founded Uplisting on the back of working for an Airbnb competitor called HouseTrip a few years ago, where we kind of learned the needs for a solution like Uplisting.
So were you ever a property manager, or did you just were working for a tech company and then you're like, there's something that needs to change?
Initially, it was the tech company. So what my role within HouseTrip? So HouseTrip were, as I said, an Airbnb competitor. Were really struggling to compete against Airbnb with all the backing they had and the brand they had. Airbnb done so well. And this was like 2016. So it was a few years ago. The industry was even earlier on than we are now, and there wasn't that much software out there. There weren't a lot of solutions. It was very, very naive, and I had spent thousands of hours talking to property managers to understand what their challenges were, what their needs were, and started to come up with this idea of building a software that could meet those needs. And then before we released that within the HouseTrip kind of entity, we sold the business got sold to TripAdvisor.
Oh no.
And then, yeah,
gotcha.
They were more interested in the HouseTrip inventory, the properties, than the back end kind of thing. So then myself and my two co-founders left TripAdvisor and started Uplisting from scratch.
Wow. So you built something pretty incredible from what I've seen in your guys' Facebook group. Actually, before we get into any of the direct bookings and all this other stuff and going into the features, outside of that, what got you into hospitality, vacation rentals? Was it kind of an accident where everyone on the podcast is like they stumbled into it?
Yeah, I've heard that. It's a common trend. Pretty much, I think. On top of the company I was working for, on top of HouseTrip, my parents do have a hospitality, like a traditional guest house, I guess, like a 16-bed guest house in the northwest of Ireland that they saved up their life savings to build this dream kind of hospitality business. They actually launched it after I'd left for college by the time it was built, so I didn't grow up with it really. But we myself and my brothers got involved with helping run it and understand a few on the ground challenges, I guess. So yeah, that combined with the tech and also renting out my own property on Airbnb when we were living in London.
Are your parents now big fans and users of Uplisting, or are they?
Thankfully, yes. We've actually recently converted the property to short-term rentals, and doing all the automated check-in and all of those improvements because their business was so challenging that they're retired, well, semi-retired, obviously they have their own business, but getting up to make breakfast for 30, 40 guests is time consuming, and all that comes along with it. So being able to automate their business a lot more, and we kind of do a lot of it remotely, my brothers and I, allows them to spend more time with their grandkids and everything else. But yeah, we do use Uplisting, thankfully.
That's awesome. Yeah, more time with the grandkids that are army crawling through.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. So let's jump in. So there, I think there's a lot of tech in the space, right? Vacation rentals, hotels, restaurants, you name it. Anywhere in hospitality, there's a big tech influx. For you guys, what do you feel like really stands out from any other property management software in the sense of you guys? I've seen in your guys' group a big push on direct bookings.
Mhm.
So kind of go walk through the features and the product itself.
Yeah, I guess there's a fundamental there's two fundamental factors, I guess, which make us stand out a little bit. One is reliability. There's a lot of software in the market, but there's not a lot of good software. There are we've got some amazing competitors that do a fantastic job, but there's a lot of not just not good stuff out there. And combined with not being reliable, there's a lot of software that's incredibly complicated to use, and it's kind of it's a trend when you don't know how to build software. You just build all the features and nobody knows how to use it. It's just like it's just poor development, it's a poor product at the end of the day. So a lot of our members are coming to Uplisting because another software has failed them in some way, whether it's unreliable or they just don't know how to use it. So those are two things: usability and reliability is what we focus on like entirely. That they are our core. And then on top of that, we're looking at, we focus entirely on the growing property manager and the needs that they have, as opposed to somebody who has one or two properties and is not looking to scale. They have very different use cases and very different needs. So that's who we're kind of building our product for.
What do you think your sweet spot user is? Are they anywhere from 10 to 50 or 50 to 100? Where do you see your normal community members kind of scaling at?
Yeah, we have a bit of it's a broad band really. So we do have people who have one or two properties who are, looking to start with a software that they can grow on. Their intention is to scale. We have people then moving, to Uplisting with 30, 40, 50 properties for various reasons. It may be reliability. It may be that they're looking to cut down on some costs. We're a flat fee per property model, so it kind of makes sense for a lot of businesses. But then we have members with 300, 400 plus properties who are maybe using a more traditional software, but because like everybody's use case is different, every single property manager has a different core need, and there's a lot of overlap. But we have these larger members who are moving over because they want to work with a partner software who will implement changes for them or upgrades or build features for them, which we do all the time depending on the size, and so long as it's relevant, the majority of our members will do that. So yeah, we have a broad range, different reasons I guess to use Uplisting, but we cater for the growing property manager is what we say.
For sure. And I do know Craig with B&B Booking out in Australia is a big raving fan of yours. So that does speak volumes that you the international, like that was one thing I think we talked about on our pre-chat, was really the power of the community that you built behind the scenes of Uplisting. It's not just a lot of marketing facing campaigns on sign up today. It's really just showing what your current users are doing and the power behind it with their very active engagement.
Yeah, probably too much that way, maybe. But we have historically not been as good at marketing and maybe not as well known as others out there. But we've been growing steadily and slowly, and as we were totally bootstrapped, so we don't have like a huge marketing budget, to push out. But as we grow, we do increase our spend on marketing and ads and whatnot. But having that backbone of a community is so valuable, just even learning from them, understanding what their needs are, their frustrations as well, of course. But having someone like Craig, and we have a load of members that are like Craig, who if they're not like emailing me every day with some request or something else, they're sharing it with all of their peers, which is incredible for us. And maybe we'll talk about it at some point, but we kind of allowed those members to invest in our company because we want to grow. Like they're sharing all of, they're bringing on loads of new customers for us, and as they bring a new customer on, our valuation goes up, as normal. So we want to allow our members to own a chunk of our company so that we can all get the upside at the end of the day.
100%. And for you guys, what's it? Just before we get into the fundraise and allowing, not the fundraise, but allowing your members to invest in Uplisting. What's been like the biggest challenge? Is it having everyone requesting different little things and different features, or what's from a software production side for you guys? Where do are you trying to balance what the future growth is to sustaining the current amount that's already on the platform? Like, what are your what are your struggles, or what were the biggest things you guys had to overcome, at least?
Yeah, I guess you start off with a bare bones product, so you kind of know you don't meet everybody's needs from day one. You try and accommodate them without holding people hostage, through long contracts. Everybody in Uplisting, well, most people are on a monthly rolling contract, and I think that really helps us to focus on what we should be building and what we should be focusing on, which is a mixture of new business, but also keeping our existing members happy, adding value, as much as possible, and for many the last few years it's been growing with them as they've
Yeah.
scaled. So as they scale, we're adding new features to meet those different challenges and so on. But you can't necessarily meet everybody's needs all the time, which is a challenge. You try to, and we've kind of introduced some ways to get around that by allowing members to invest, or not invest, right, to pay for some upgrade that we might do, or
Okay.
if it's that important to you, then would you put that much towards it, and we'll build it for you, and bring in some extra engineers or whatever it is. So yeah, just being the challenge is just being flexible without building a product that is littered with features that people don't actually need.
Yeah.
So it's part of building a good product. You need to understand what they're asking, what they're asking for, because people will ask for something, but
Be the most generic statement. It's
yeah.
like, I need this, and you're like, well, there's like 5,000 things that go into that.
Exactly. So there's about 10 questions later, you kind of realize that the actual solution that you want is very different to what the problem you're having. So it's all about understanding what people need, and what we should be focusing on. And I think being bootstrapped and having to really narrow down on what we're building helps us greatly in that way.
For sure. And this is more like a personal question on the founder side, but like for you, what pushes you guys to really, continue to push forward? It's not I guess we could say it's a fragmented space, right? There's so much software out there. And granted, like you said, there's a lot of bad ones that just is like, oh man, what are you doing? And there's a couple really good ones that are kind of like you guys, where you really paving the way to make the user experience. It's not just sign up, numbers, and then all right, we're done. Like, thank you for being part of the industry. What drives you guys for continued growth?
Yeah, good question. I mean, there's personal reasons, I guess, but from a business perspective, there's always something happening that illustrates the value we're offering to the industry. So at the moment we're onboarding a number of like 100 plus property managers, and for our side of business, that's incredibly valuable. So just having those coming on board and knowing that we're competing with the larger players out there, and we're actually getting, we're fighting with them. We're not fighting. We're in the fight, right?
Yeah,
we're in the fight, and those people are moving to Uplisting. It just shows you how much value is in our product, which that's all we need at the end of the day. As long as we can see that there's growth for us from a business perspective, and people actually want to use the software, then it's very easy to get motivated.
For sure. And so this, like, for your guys' direct booking, I've been seeing all these posts on your group. The amount of direct booking revenue you guys have brought in for your customers, in the sense of I'm assuming it's through product features and the ability to give these hosts and property managers the ability to capture that data. But kind of walk us through that, because a lot of property like products or softwares don't even show a lot of the, like, they're highlighting more or less of integrations, channel connections, maybe even a unified inbox or something like that. But granted, at the end of the day, you guys are really pushing that book direct message. So how does that kind of tie in for what Uplisting is accomplishing?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, it's all about, again, it's usability, making things easy. So there's so much education still to go on in the direct booking space, where people do think it's a lot harder than it actually is, or they're not using the right technology, or it's if you have never done it before, it's like, where do I start? Or if you've grown your business on Airbnb, how do I ensure that the guests are keep adhering to my house rules, or can I get a deposit, or all those kind of questions that are totally natural, that we at least attempt to solve with the feature or the product that we release. So our direct booking engine, first and foremost, it's click and play. Like, you literally click a button, connect your Stripe account, and you can take a direct booking within 5 minutes. Like, genuinely very simple to use. It's mobile responsive. It looks well. Like, all of those things are critically important for like conversion rates and getting guests to book, and often overlooked. But like, it's so important. You're competing with Airbnb, so your website needs to be on par with Airbnb. Then things like the cancellation policies that you might offer. We have a payment plan feature. So with Airbnb, if you stay for a 30 night stay or a longer stay, you can pay X up front and the remainder, I think it's like 50.
Yeah.
So with uplisting, you can select to pay 10% up front, for example, and the remainder 10 days before check-in. Totally customizable. Just increases your conversion rate. You might get cancellations on that, but
Yeah.
that's what the consumer is wanting these days. So you kind of offer that, and you'll get more bookings. And then things like the post stay, your concerns are, how do I verify that the guest that's booked is who they say they are? So we provide guest ID verification, where the guest can upload their ID and we verify that to be legitimate. You can do a selfie as well and verify that the face on the selfie is the same as the ID.
Is that something you guys have built, or is that a partnered?
We use proprietary software for that, but it's all built into Uplisting, so you don't there's not an extra tech stack you need to integrate with. We provide it within Uplisting. It's actually powered by Stripe. So it's similar to how identification, similar to how Airbnb do it. We would use a similar software.
Sure.
Then we have like an e-sign rental agreement, so the guest can sign agree to your terms effectively, and if the worst comes to worst, you can use that in a court of law or whatever you need. And then the deposit, so we automatically collect a deposit, and we pre-auth that deposit 24 hours before check-in. And if the guest hasn't signed the agreement or paid the deposit or verified their ID, and these are all optional, of course, then we don't send the check-in instructions. So simple. Logical kind of features that we have like that just make running direct bookings very straightforward.
For sure. And for you guys, when you're looking at Airbnb, like, are you looking at, like, the biggest thing I've noticed, like, I came from the hotel world, so the worst part about booking online with my phone would be that you enter your name, first and last, email, and then you get to the phone number, right? And then you have to like switch your keyboard over to the numbers thing. But most keyboards should just automatically be numbers, right? Like, it's like it's a simple little thing like that. But are you guys looking at the click done model that Airbnb is really mastered when it comes to, like, you create your account, add your card, and then when you go book a place, you select your dates and you click.
Yeah, that'd be like the next kind of iteration of a direct booking portal, where if we're looking at a goal of ours would be to provide a Shopify experience for direct bookings. That's there's quite a bit of work involved in that.
Yeah,
a lot of thought and everything else, but that's what we'd like to at least offer that to our members. Yes.
Awesome. That's really cool, because it's Airbnb has gotten very, like, at the end of the day, they've become, as we talked about in Miami, and you guys are going to be at the Book Direct show, so like a big Book Direct conversation is the ability that they just given, so such an easy experience that people really are just that they find something they like, they get the shiny object syndrome, where they're the house has got a pool and a hot tub and great, boom, done, and then they kind of just walk away. And we've noticed, even for us, like, we have a trigger that happens for our properties, is that a message gets sent right when they booked. It's thank you for picking our place to stay, blah blah blah, here's the information you need to know. A lot of them don't even read that, because they booked it so fast and it's done, and they literally lock their screen, and then they don't even see it until later. So it's like, totally, it's crazy how they did that.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of thought processes go into what we build. So we have like some feedback, for example, picking what the right things to build. We get the payment page that we provide is as limited number of inputs as possible, because the more inputs you have, the quicker somebody's going to leave and just look at that and go, I'm not putting my address in, I'm not putting anything else in, I'm going to go on Airbnb because it's easier. So things like a product decision for us would be to just have name, phone number, credit card entry. That increases your conversion rate, and but we would have members who are looking to change that so that they can enter, they can have an address form and all of these pre-payment forms that are just not, they shouldn't be doing it, and instead of having it before payment, do that after payment. Really simple, simple change, but makes a world of difference in terms of conversion rate. And people don't know about these things, obviously. When people don't build websites, it's not something that most people understand, but at least from us coming from that kind of background, and testing landing pages and all of that, we have a better understanding of what should be done to increase your conversion rates.
For sure. And you kind of talked about the education part of it. What for you guys are you finding is the most success when it comes to teaching people direct bookings, how easy it is? Like, is it just constantly being repetitive and just showing like every different thing, or is it what's that big educational piece that I think we're all missing?
There's a lot of people just don't know where to start. How do I how do I get direct bookings? Do I email or do I send my link to my Airbnb inquiries? And no, absolutely not. Do not do
Yeah,
that.
if you want to get
Um,
booted.
and I think a very important thing to remember is that direct bookings is a strategy within your overall strategy. It's not going to replace Airbnb. For very few people, is it going to replace Airbnb? So
Yeah.
you need to work side by side with Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, and so on. But direct bookings, one thing that I say, if somebody asks how do I get started with direct bookings, I think the lowest hanging fruit that I would recommend is just marketing to your previous guests. Really simple. Collect your email address from the guest, and on their anniversary of their stay, or if you've got some promotions, just email them. And try and target those as the first direct booking guest that you're going to get. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, my thing is now finding out how to get rid of emails going to spam. It's getting worse and worse. It's like even just messaging someone on the podcast side they messaged me on LinkedIn, say, hey, did you want to follow up anytime soon? And it was like, yeah, did you get my email like 3 days ago? And they're like, no. I was like, all right, well, that's weird that I went to spam. We've been talking before, so the spam is getting a lot harder. So I think that's one challenge. Direct voice. Yeah,
definitely.
Hey, I hope you guys are enjoying this episode, and I wanted to drop in quickly to let you know that our partners at Jetstream have some of the best-in-class technology that sits at the heart of the guest experience with a focus on generating revenue for your property assets. With their platform, your property gets the best-in-class tech and integrations to remote access, guest screening, booking protection, and payment processing. Better yet, their team does all of the hard work of 24/7 guest communication and content creation. So go ahead, click the link in the show notes so you can jump on board today and take advantage of their professional hospitality team. Now, we're back to the episode. Okay, so you mentioned it. Okay, so now you guys are letting your power users, or even just users in general of Uplisting, to really get into the investment side, to own a piece of the company outside of, when you guys, if you ever sell, or if you, whatever you do, so that way they get the perks of being continuously loyal. What was the spark of that? And also kind of backtracking, going back and forth here, but you guys are 100% remote. Was that before COVID, or is that due to COVID now that you guys have gone full remote company?
No, always have been. So we set up in the UK. There's three of us altogether that founded the company. Andy lives in Leeds. Tade lives in Slovenia, and I live in New York. So like from the start, we met and then separated like immediately. So we've always been remote, and just as we've grown, slow, like organically, and brought on new people, just not having that restriction of location just made most sense. So yeah, entirely remote, and always have been.
Well, head of the trend. But so for the investment side, what's the big push for you guys to go that way? Are you just developing more features, and so you want them to really become a part of that, or what's for you guys? What's your thought?
I mean, there's many different factors, but when we first started Uplisting, the three of us as founders had raised money. We'd always set money separately before, and we didn't necessarily enjoy that, especially from an early stage. So we could have raised money and accelerated the business and maybe being bigger at this point, but it didn't really fit into what we wanted from the business and what our lifestyles are. So we didn't really want to get the VC money, at least until the point where we were turning over a certain amount of money so that we would have the upper hand in any negotiations.
Well, you want to be able to fly to Miami on a last minute notice, right? And come, with a bunch of people from.
Totally, but other things like not having to do a board meeting every month, or not having to sit through somebody who's on your board giving you shitty advice that you don't want to listen to, and having to having that as part of your job. I don't want a boss, basically. That's the kind of the thing. But and not to say that all VCs are like that. There's loads of room for VCs. I'm not against VC money in any way, shape, or form.
But in the early stages, like it's kind of, it's almost not a band-aid. It's kind of a stopping point. It's very much a deteriorator of growth.
It can be, for sure. And we've seen that from House Trip. Like the amount of money that the company was spending just because they had the money was just, it doesn't, more money does not mean a better company,
100%.
So we didn't raise any money. And over the past couple of years, 2-3 years, we've seen these advances in crowdfunding. And I actually raised crowdfunding money maybe 10 years ago now, but and that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And at the end of it, I was like, I'm never ever doing this again, because that was so difficult. Raised like $500,000, but anyway, we decided more recently that we wanted to. There's loads of reasons. So a personal reason is that we want to remove a bit of the risk from ourselves. So give ourselves, especially during COVID, we're like, let's step back a little bit. How can we ensure the longevity of the company that works for us as well? So let's take some money, maybe raise some money, and have a bit more of a runway. We also just the power of community is it's there. It's like we get this feedback from our members all the time. They're helping us to build this business that is becoming more and more valuable, that it attracts more and more people, and there's like a dollar value for every member that's referred to us. And if somebody's doing that because they're giving us feedback or sharing with their community, then we should be rewarding them in some way. I feel very strongly about that we don't necessarily want to have this business that is just owned by 3 people, that has the upside at the end. We want our team. We want to give our team access to shares and uplisting. We want our community to invest in the company, and from the other side, then it's better having a community-owned company, in my opinion, because they'll continue to share it. They have a vested interest in the company, and it works out very nicely for all parties.
Yeah, it's more of like a way higher paying out affiliate program. It's like
exactly,
because they're buying into it. They're not just getting referral or a commission off of a link that they post on a LinkedIn post or something like that. It's
for sure, and it's more authentic, I think. Anyway, maybe. But also a lot I see so many parallels with what we're doing to our members. So like building software from scratch, building this business from zero is what all of our members have done, but in a different space from an Airbnb or short-term rental perspective. So there's so many parallels there. They can see what we're doing and how we're hustling and making things happen out of nothing, same as they are, and they're willing to invest some of the money they've earned because they can see that has future and potential.
For sure. And yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry, then, and then just the mechanisms. There's so many ways to do it now. Like we did an AngelList roll-up vehicle, which I had no idea existed 12 months ago.
Is the AngelList what?
It's a roll-up vehicle, it's called, and basically you can set up your own syndicate on AngelList, where basically I control the syndicate, not me, but the company controls the syndicate. Our members can invest into it, and basically what they get is. Again, there's no need to think about board seats or votes or anything. Like we still have control of the business as we move forward, but our members have opportunity to get some upside, whether it's profit sharing or an exit at some point. We've got we've got no clear intentions of what it's going to be, but at some point they're going to own some of the company, so they'll get some money out of it.
Oh, that's really cool, and I do love the unique part about the vacation rental side is that. We are very much an entrepreneurial bunch where it's like I don't know. I just tried describing it from like the hotel world. The hotel world when I was like into it was very much like this is how we've been doing it for 20 years. This is how it's done. No partnerships, like nothing to do. You don't need to go recreate the wheel, right? Like they're just like we're gonna stick to our thing. And then getting the vacation rental world, it was like, hey, let's collaborate, let's partner, let's do this, let's do that. Like we're all at that point where it's like I have a vision, you align with my vision, let's grow together. And it's very much like arm in arm type community as we saw in Miami, like just different operators, different softwares, different everything coming together and really just collaborating and talking. Like not to go on about the Miami trip, but just like Andreas and Dennis from Sextant State and Cassiola went to the Sextant warehouse and toured it and showed each other's kind of like cards in a way where it's like where are you going to find that? You're not going to find Marriott and Hilton doing that, right? They're not going to be like, hey, come check out our back office and da.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's very much a great community. So that's really cool that you guys get to grow and build that community with your users.
On that topic, it's something that I found, again, I was surprised about this when we first entered this, release uplisting, where we get a member somewhere like Craig in Brisbane, for example. But earlier on, we get somewhere in Los Angeles or in LA or Perth or some location, and then all of a sudden we've got 10 members in that same city. And we're like, what is going on here? Like my assumption would be that people and operators do not share within the same city, at least. They're competing, but that was just not the case. Everybody, they'd have their groups together, they'd go and meet up, and they'd share if they found some software that worked for them, they'd share it. Very collaborative.
Yeah, very much so. And we, obviously on the podcast, I see that too. Everyone's like, "What are you doing? What are you using?" And then it's like, "Oh yeah, go, run free and wild with all of this this information." But it's really cool. And so for you, I guess like what's your like outside of you say you don't really know is it going to be an acquisition, is it going to be this, is it going to be that, what's your big your big goal for what you're building and what you're doing, what's your main reason personally on just getting into the industry and continue, like after a lot of founders don't sell a company to TripAdvisor and then get back into the industry and try to create something different. So for you, what's a big aspiration for what you're building, what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't want a boss. There's loads of reasons why you start a company. I guess
Yeah,
I don't like bosses. I enjoy having control over what I'm building and what I'm working on a day-to-day basis, and making things happen from nothing, as all of us in this industry are. I think we really want Uplisting to be fit into our lifestyles. So for example, one of my co-founders went on a trip around the world, 2 years ago, where he didn't check in for like 7 months, and that's not a problem because we're happy, we're fine with that.
yeah,
It's not an issue. We do what we want to do. So having it that fits into our lifestyle, and whether that's clocking off at 5 p.m. every day and spending time with my kids, that's what
yeah,
I do. I don't work weekends. I don't feel too much pressure with the business. We're in a nice position at the moment.
yeah,
Just those lifestyle things, and actually focusing on what's most important outside of work. But same with my colleagues. We just want to have a business that provides a lot of value to our members, and but still fits into our lifestyle, and we're not like running around ragged, stressed to the max, not enjoying ourselves.
yeah, 100%. I love that.
Simple, simple
Yeah.
life.
Simple life. I like it. I like it.
Mm.
No boss. Control what you want to do day to day. So that's really nice. Um, or what I guess like you guys get to see a lot of data and trends. I hate saying the word trends, so like trends. But like, what are your 2022 feels a lot more positive. I think
Mhm.
we all kind of got to the new year and we're feeling a little bit more excited, except for like rest in peace Betty White and a few of the other big legends that have passed away like right in the beginning. But it's like I feel like we're feeling very positive. What are your like overall goals, predictions, thoughts of 2022 and 2023, maybe even?
Um, Yeah, I think so. From like maybe from our perspective, what we're looking at, what our goals are for the company, or what we want to provide to our members, we kind of have these four pillars that we work towards, which is increase your revenue, automate as much as possible. The industry is just obsessed with automation; like
Yeah,
there can't be enough automation. Improve your guest experiences and just operational features or tools. So within Uplisting, what we're focusing a lot on the revenue side. So helping, a feature we're working on is upsells. So helping you generate more income from your existing guests. I think that's something that the industry needs more of, and there's so much potential there to increase your revenue that there's a lot of scope for us to make a real impact in that. There's general, I don't know, like the trends that we're seeing are obviously remote working and
yeah,
this leisure trend of business and leisure.
yeah,
Something that I do a lot of, my family do a lot of, where we go away for a couple of weeks, and just the what you need from in your property to accept those kind of stays. So comfortable beds, couches,
yeah,
all the amenities in the kitchen. It's not just, you can't just get away with a stage property with cheap furniture anymore. It really has to be quality stuff. So looking towards that, as there's a big reason why somebody's going to pick, or a family at least is going to pick an Airbnb over a hotel, is that
mhm,
I can work there, good internet, all of those that we probably are aware of, but they're so important. And then just that experience in general, just how can we improve experiences of our properties that compete with Airbnb, or sorry, compete with hotels and so
yeah.
on.
Well, I love the upsell feature. Uplisting with an upsell feature, it makes perfect
Well,
sense, right?
yeah, that was the whole idea. The name came from us helping you to do better with your short-term rentals. So up something, upsell, uplist, get more bookings. That's what
Yeah.
we're here for.
Awesome. I love it. It's great. And I know David Jacoby from Hostfully. Like we went over their data report and just that was a big thing that a lot of people were growing in the sense of increasing revenue, or not revenue but rates. Adding more inventory. But the number one thing that a lot of managers weren't looking at as a way to scale and grow in the revenue department was upsells
Hmm.
and capturing that guest in the property rather than just before and after, right? And getting them to book again hopefully book direct, and then of course, all the other stuff. So.
And those kind of growing property managers who may be looking at an exit at some point, those are the kind of things that investors, or somebody who's going to buy you are going to be looking at, is what is the average revenue per guest, and what are you doing to increase that revenue, and whether it's direct bookings or if it's upsells or whatever else, they're definitely things that need to be part of your strategy.
Well, I think just not even for an exit, but like as an operator, I shouldn't be looking at ADR. I should be definitely looking at revenue per guest, not per room, per guest, and really getting out of that space. I don't know if you know Richard, who's one of the founders of Muse. He's very philosophical on the sense of, a room is a room, right? Like, you're not just selling a bed, a shower, and possibly a desk. Like, you're selling space in the sense of, how are you going to maximize that space, and then also how are you going to maximize that time with that guest or that user, that traveler, outside of the 24 to 48 hours that they're normally there, right? They're there for a week. Granted, you got them for 7 days, but how do you capture them more outside of that? And so I think it's something very unique that from a revenue management standpoint, we always talk about ADR, occupancy, RevPAR, but maybe it needs to change a little bit and go into that route.
Yeah, I was actually we're building a kind of an insight feature and Uplisting at the moment, and going through understanding metrics better, and I think something that's really exciting about building a business, a software business, is you get to dive in deep into a particular challenge and learn it and understand it and come up with your own solutions to it. But these part of this metrics, I think there's I don't know if this has been done already, but a metric for revenue per over commission type thing. So understanding, as you start implementing your direct booking strategy or get more direct bookings, what is your commission? How is your commission that you're paying to channels reducing based on those activities you're doing?
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. We'll definitely. I can sense an episode number 2 coming out in the future ones, going into all those data and different metric points. But no, it's really it does challenge you. I think the more we can challenge operators and even just hosts that are building their business on Airbnb alone, to really challenge that thinking, right? Like, you have people on YouTube, I can teach you how to make $1 million in a year on Airbnb, and it's like, okay, great, but at the end of the day, for sustainability and profitability and all this other stuff, and for the growth of the industry, for the sake of not just being one user but a pond, a big ocean, how are we really challenging that mindset and that shift of metrics and calculations and everything else. So.
And it's just evolving, isn't it? We're all learning, and as we fine tune things, new challenges come out, and we try to solve them.
100%. Well, I like to ask this last question to every guest on the podcast, and it's, if you had one link, granted, we are going to share every link possible in the show notes, but if you had one link that any listener right now could just grab from the show notes and go to, where would you send them?
Go to my Twitter. So it's my handle is Breslin, my surname, and let's have a chat over there.
Perfect. Well, you're the first one to actually mention Twitter. Everyone's LinkedIn, website, or email. So I'm surprised. So Twitter was the one.
Let's tweet.
Tweet.
I think it's a bit of an untapped resource. I think lots of really interesting conversations going over there. I've never actually been that big into LinkedIn, but more recently I have. There's a lot of action on LinkedIn. So all valuable.
Well, now I have to get into Twitter. Thanks a lot, Vince.
I'll start tagging you. Don't worry.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And for all of our listeners, make sure you like and subscribe everything Uplisting. And of course, we'll see you all again next week. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoy the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week. What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We We want to send you 2 places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.